We'll go ahead and get started. We'll start with opening statement on our selection, tournament, etc., and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say thank you to our fan base for coming out and making last night's event a really special one at Indian Hills. So grateful to Indian Hills for allowing us to have our selection show party there. It was really, really well done, and we had a great turnout, and certainly a really memorable time for our players. You know, our draw, 7 seed is what I kind of in my mind believed that we would be. I think we're worthy of that for sure, to be seeded this year after not being seeded last year. So that's a great accomplishment for our team. Marquette in the first round will be a real challenge. Obviously, Marquette beat us earlier in the year at their place. You know, I'd like to think we're really different than we were then. You know, Izzy Vanderwheeler was coming off an injury. Callie was injured. Gabby Y was injured. We were super young. We're undoubtedly we have grown from that time, but it's going to take some growth to be able to beat a perennial NCAA tournament team that I have a lot of respect for, and looking forward to only having an hour-and-a-half bus ride to get there this time of year. That makes it nice. You know, frustrating that we're not going to be able to do it in the Yum Center just from a ticketing standpoint. I know there's a lot of our fan base that's frustrated because they're not able to get tickets. You know, L&N is a wonderful volleyball facility. It's just on the small side spectatorship-wise, and you know, we've been inundated with people calling today, frustrated that they're not able to get their hands on tickets. But you know, that part of it is what it is. We're blessed to be staying close to home and looking forward to getting started.
How much does it help that you're playing a team that you've seen before?
Well, it helps me. It helps with the scout. You know, after playing 3 teams in the conference tournament that we had not seen at all in the regular season, that's a lot of prep work. And you know, so to be able to lean back into our scout from earlier in the year, and obviously they've changed a lot too, you know, with the whole season that's gone by, but it helps, and it'll help our players a lot with the familiarity. Ironically, you know, this bracket of 4 teams, we played all 3 of the other teams in the bracket. We played Loyola, we played Louisville, and we played Marquette, and so that makes it a little bit easier preparation-wise, but 4 quality teams, 4, you know, 3 really good coaches I'm going to be coaching against, and will be a real challenge. Will be a real challenge.
I mean, you mentioned being different. Certainly, I think that was the first true road game. Mm-hmm. You were battling injuries. Mm-hmm. At the same time, you guys feel like they're probably going to be a little bit different team.
Yeah, they will, and not only, and we also, if you won't remember back, but I certainly do, but you know, the way that schedule fell, we played number 24 Dayton that morning, and then had to come back and play Marquette in their first match of the day that afternoon, and which is a challenge as well. And you know, it's not uncommon in tournaments. You know, Marquette didn't do anything, you know, that other people don't do. It's just you know, it's a challenge for our young team, and then to be beat up the way we were. And you know, when I watched that film, we certainly have come a long way since then. But like I said, we're going to need to. They're you know, where almost all of our offensive players are still kind of green. You know, Marquette has 2 just veteran kids that have done it for a long time there, in Natalie Ring and Hattie Bray, and you know, we've played them last year, we play them this year. We have great familiarity with them, and you know, they're really good, but you know, this time of year you're supposed to have to play really good if you want to advance. And you know, I know Marquette, obviously, after beating us in the regular season, feels good about their chances going into the tournament. And I think our kids and our coaches and our program feel like we have a shot too. And that's, you know, that's what should make for a really special match on Friday.
I know in other tournaments they try to avoid regular season rematches. Were you a little surprised at the way this draw took up?
Yeah, I had us going to Louisville as a real possibility because I thought Louisville would be a 2, and we were the logical 7 that would go to their bracket. But I didn't get my mind to Marquette in terms of being that, you know, that opponent. I had Michigan in my mind, or you know, a lot of other options. But there, you know, I get it. You know, I think Marquette, much like we get sent to Louisville and Kentucky a lot. You know, with Marquette, you immediately start thinking Wisconsin and, you know, that, but it makes a lot of sense. And again, they're much like us. They're a team that's in the tournament year in, year out. So there'll be no jitters for them. There'll be none of that. They're a team that's used to being there. And, you know, they were a Sweet 16 team a year ago, if I'm not mistaken. And, you know, they're used to winning in the tournament. We've had success in the tournament. It's truly a matchup of two of the best mid-major programs in the country, two programs that are used to being in the NCAA tournament. And I believe it will be one of the better first-round matchups, you know, on Friday in this thing, because two evenly matched teams and a great environment should be a lot of fun.
You talked about this being, you know, your program's been there, Marquette's been there, but also there's some players on your team that haven't been there, Kyra, Taylor as well. You know, as a program, how do you kind of get those players prepared? Even they're not just freshmen, some of them.
Yeah, well, that's certainly, we're going to have a lot of new faces in their first ever NCAA tournament. You know, you try to schedule in a way that puts them in big environments. You know, we were up at Louisville in the Yum Center playing in front of 4,000 or 5,000 earlier in the year. That helps. I think having a conference tournament really, really helps, because it puts them in a tournament setting, a lose and go home kind of setting. And I think last week in the, you know, Conference USA tournament, I think is something that kind of gets them to understand the feel of what it'll be like. But look, there's an element, like you said, you know, Callie Bauer and Abby Schaefer, and, you know, those kids have played in a ton of these, but we got a lot of new faces, and that have grown a lot, and you know, we just kind of talk them through it and try to get them to enjoy this process, because I say this every year, but this deal is crazy, because you work all year to get to this moment, and then it gets here, and the selection show party and finals week is next week, and like it's like you're going 10,000 miles an hour, and then that last ball drops, and it's like you run into a wall, and it's just over. And so you know, you just try to embrace it, but certainly not relax. You know, you realize you still have work to do, and you want to extend your season, and I think our kids feel like this is a time when we can do that. Well, it would be, again, we'd have a whole lot more red towels waving in the stands if it was, you know, a little bit bigger venue. I mean, I think it holds, you know, 1,200, 1,300, something like that. And I think they only have to give you a 100 ticket block as a visiting team. And so, you know, the three visiting teams are going to split 300 tickets, and Louisville have the other 1,000. And, you know, that's rough. You know, that's disappointing. You know, again, no ill will toward Louisville at all whatsoever. It's just disappointing for our fans that want to be there. You know, there'll be a big group of Louisville fans. You know, 1,000 Louisville fans is not a lot, you know, and so there'll be a big group of Louisville fans that'll be disappointed that they can't get tickets as well. But like I said, that's all on the periphery. That's all, you know, fan related. And, you know, I'd love for every fan that wants to see these matches be able to see it, but that's just not the way this one will lay out. But on Friday, when you walk in that building, it's going to be a special environment. It's a beautiful facility for volleyball. They create a great environment in there. You know, the aesthetics of that place is really, really good. And so, you know, once first ball's served, it'll be a really special environment for our players to be in. But, you know, I know there's a lot of fans throughout, you know, these four schools, but especially Louisville and Western Kentucky that would love to be in attendance and won't necessarily have that opportunity.
Do you maybe try to figure out a way to convert some of those Louisville fans into Western?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I would hope, you know, I have such a healthy respect for Louisville, and Dan Meskey and I have become friends, and I really respect what he does and how he does it. And, you know, there's people working in that program. You know, Sarah Drury Petrovic, and you know, these are people that I've known for a very, very long time, and you know, but that's my home. That's where I'm from originally. That's where Craig Berry, our associate head coach, is from. We have a huge volleyball alumni base there. We have a huge WKU alumni base there, and you know, obviously, come Saturday, if we both advance, I know it'll be, you know, Cards fans through and through. But you know, in round one, it would be great you know, if they walk in there and see us as somebody they can cheer for, as another team from the state of Kentucky, and hopefully, you know, Louisville volleyball is a really unique area in general for volleyball. It's a very, very knowledgeable fan base. You know, the sport has always been huge in Louisville, and so it's my hope that they're aware of what Western Kentucky has been. They're aware of how Western Kentucky has done it through the years, and hopefully this is a program that they can respect and appreciate, and certainly we would appreciate them, you know, seeing red out there on the court and getting behind it a little bit on Friday, and then Saturday they can, you know, repurpose their allegiance back to the Cards, and we'll let the chips, you know, fall where they may, but we certainly would appreciate it. We've got a lot of Louisville connection in that city, from former players to our coaching staff and so many WKU alumni as well.
Your experience with two really matched teams and obviously your tournament experience, what do you think will be the deciding factor in the game as far as that?
Man, that's a good question. It's a really good question, because I do think this should be a good one. I don't think either team is going to walk in there feeling like they're going to run away with this one. So, you know, I always come back to the serve and pass piece of it. Neither team really got a lot done the first time we played, you know, in serve and pass, but I think both teams are very capable offensively. So I think it's which either team that can just slow the other one down a little bit. I don't think this is a deal where we're going to hit 350 and they're going to hit a 080, or, you know, they're going to hit 350 and we hit 080. I think this is one of those that we got to try to, you know, hit up in the high 200s, closer to 300. We got to hold them into the low 200s and just win close games, because both teams are going to get stuff done. And, you know, and so I look for if the one prediction I would have in this one is I'd be really, really surprised if either team can win it in 3, because I do believe as the week goes on and people start looking at what are the best first round matchups, if you're not connected to any team in the tournament but you love volleyball, what's the match that you're going to want to watch on Friday? And I have a feeling this one will be up there, because it's such an even matchup in the first round. And so, you know, hopefully we can find a way to score one more point.
You touched on the uniqueness of the Conference USA tournament, playing teams you hadn't faced in conference play. Not that it's easier this week, but is it a little more accelerated, the prep, and that you've got 3 teams in front of you that you've already scouted?
Yeah, it does. It'll allow us to get into what we want to do with them much quicker. You know, our staff will be prepared for it sooner, and we can start getting into it. And, you know, one of the things that I really wanted to, like, you never know what you're going to get. Like last year, some matches start on Thursday, some matches start on Friday. You know, last year we were a Thursday game in Lexington, and it's a quick turnaround, because your travel day's Tuesday, your Wednesday is your NCAA practice day, and off you go. So you really only have one really good practice, and that's Monday. With the way this one lines up, and it could be really critical for us, we're going to get a full practice in today, we'll get a full practice in tomorrow, and we'll probably get somewhat of a full practice Wednesday before we get on the bus to head to Louisville, since we play on Friday. And I cannot tell you the impact that has to have 2 more full days of preparation, because your NCAA practice when you get there is, I wouldn't call it it's an NCAA exhibition more than it is a practice. Like you're not getting a whole lot done in that practice. You're just getting used to the venue and, you know, trying to get the kids to quit looking up and looking around at all the banners and do all that kind of stuff and lock in on what you're doing. So the fact that we're playing teams we've played, the fact that we have more prep time is something as a coach that I'm really, really excited to have.
How would you say your team has matured since that last matchup?
Yeah, we're just so much more complete. When you look back at that match, you know, when we played them, and again, these are things you can look up for yourself, but, you know, when we played them the last time, Kyra Knox hit 100, Faith Young hit a 067, and Izzy Vanderwheely hit a 0. And I challenge you to find a time where any of them have done that individually the rest of the year, much less all in one match. And, you know, we've just grown so much. You know, our setting situation, Callie Bauer was that morning against Dayton is when Callie dislocated her shoulder. And then we had to turn around 6 hours later and play Marquette. And, you know, all of a sudden we're kind of figuring out a lineup. You guys remember those days. I was struggling through those. And just on all facets, you know, back then when we played them the first time, Abby Schaefer was still in the Libero jersey. And now Taylor Barron was on the all-tournament team as a Libero at the Conference USA tournament. Like, we've just grown exponentially in every area and kind of figured out who we are a little bit more and created that balance. You know, when we played them the last time, it was Olivia Skidmore and not much else. If you look at that box score, and there's nothing that could be further from the truth, you know, in terms of who we are now. It's, you know, we're balanced and we're built for now. And we'll have to play really, really well, but we've grown a lot, and I think we, you know, have a shot to go out and play well in December, which is all you can ask for.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Awesome, guys.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate